Hi, I'm Harriet Kelsall, the Bespoke Jeweller, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to make an elasticated bracelet, which is a great way to use old beads if you've got broken necklaces and things around the house, or if you want to make something for a present. If you've got some really nice jewellery, like some pearls or something that are broken, then take those to the jeweller, because really you want to get it done properly with a clasp and with proper threading, which is a bit advanced for this clip. But if this is just for, if you just want something for a bit of fun, you just want to do it cheaply, they're not too valuable. This is a good way to go to do it at home. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use elastic thread. Now it's important to buy the right kind of elastic thread. You can get it very cheaply on eBay or whatever. And what you want is monofilament. This is an elasticated thread that is all one piece. You can get elasticated thread like this, which isn't all one piece, which is actually lots of little threads, which can be quite good for larger whole beads, but it's very difficult to thread without a needle. And so what you really want is this monofilament. You don't need a needle because it's got enough body for you to poke through the beads on their own, and it's also good for small beads as well as large beads, so that's why I use it. This particular one is Beadalon Elasticity. I'm using the 0.5mm one. I also often use the 0.8mm one and the 1mm one for larger beads, so pick what's right for you. Doesn't have to be that brand. They don't pay me. Sadly, they should. Right, so first thing to do is to get yourself set up right. You need some clear nail varnish, well, or it doesn't have to be clear, any colour nail varnish, the colour won't show. You need obviously your beads, some scissors, and you need some kind of cloth like a tea towel to set your beads out on. That stops them rolling around. And the first thing we want to do is think about both our size and our design. So to get your size, simply hold it round your wrist. Look roughly how tight you want it to be. Make sure you add a little bit on for the fact that it's going to go over your hand, and then don't cut it off obviously, but just lay that out, and then visually you can see roughly how you want to line your beads up in order to get the right length. If you cut it off, it's annoying to tie, and it's annoying to thread, so leave it on there, but that's just visually for you to get the idea of when to stop. So the first thing to do is to lay out my beads. Now I'm thinking, I bought these little Picasso Jasper beads, which I thought were really pretty for a friend of mine. I'm making her a bracelet. She's a bit of a tomboy. She's not going to want anything too glitzy. And then I've also just happened to have these around from old broken things. I've got some hematine, which is actually an artificial type of hematite. It's not natural. I've got some labradorite, which is quite pretty. It's grey with a little sheen to it. And then I've got some little Swarovski crystals, which are a bit sparkly, but I thought if I introduce them every now and then, that'd be good. So I'm now going to lay out what I want. I want it to look random. Random takes time. It's got to look random. It can't actually be random. So I'm now going to lay those out. So we'll probably speed this bit up. Right, so I'm pretty happy with that layout. Because it's a random layout, it doesn't have to be exact, and if it's not quite long enough, I'll be able to easily add some more on. So I've left a few over. Be careful not to use the exact number that you think, because if you get it slightly wrong, it's going to be annoying. Right. Then you simply, you leave it threaded on. If you really can't, say you're sharing the thread, then you can cut it off, but cut it off long and put some sellotape on so that it can't fall off the bottom. And then it's just a matter of threading on your beads, which is just as easy as it sounds. So I think we might speed this bit up as well. Now I've done that lot, and I can see that it's not going to be quite big enough, especially because my friend's wrist is a bit bigger than mine. So now I can see that, so I'm going to just do a little bit more. You may have noticed when I was doing that I was struggling a bit with the labradorite beads. That's the little grey round ones. The reason is they've got teeny tiny holes. They're hard to see, and also when you do find them, sometimes you just can't get the thread through, even this quite thin thread. You can get thinner thread, but I find the thinner thread often breaks, so just be careful if you're buying beads for this, to make sure that they're, you look at the hole size, because sometimes the hole size is so small that they're almost unusable. So yeah, that's just a little thing to look out for. Yeah, so the trick with the little beads, when you've got little holes, but they are big enough for the string, is turn it in your fingers until you see the hole. I mean, it sounds really silly, but actually it's a bit of a technique that you need to practice. And when you see the hole, you need to sort of stab it with the thread and hope you get it. And I'm so not managing to show you this. Let's try a different one. Sometimes their holes are just too small, even on the same string. You might have to reject some. I'm just turning that around until I can see the hole, and there we go, just get it through. So you just keep turning it until you find the hole, basically. Now let's see if that looks long enough. I'm pleased with the way that's looking. I want it to look quite casual, and that's I think that's the look we've got. You know, ironically, I think I've now made it slightly too big, and so I'm just going to take a few off. There, that should be about right. Right, so now we're ready to think about finishing this off. Now, the trick here is to leave these threads long. I know it's a bit of a waste of thread, but it's not really, because if you cut this too short, you just won't be able to tie it properly, and then you'll have to start again, which is annoying. So there are various different ways to tie these knots, and there's a way that's very easy that I can show you, which is quite good for beginners, and it works and it holds. So I'm going to show you that first, and then there's a second way that I use, which is sort of a slightly more professional way of doing it, but it's a bit more fiddly. So first I'll show you the easier way, which is also very reliable. So first I'm going to do rather like an ordinary knot that you might tie in your shoelace. I'm going to go left over right once, but then twice. Then I'm going to pull that a bit tighter, so you've got a little twisty bit there. Then I'm going to do that again, but instead of going left over right, I'm going to go right over left. 1, 2, 3 times. So I've got a little circular shape here. I'll just show you that, with 2 twists, well 4 twists I suppose it looks like on the bottom, and then an extra one on the top. Then you pull this together, pull the bottom first, pull it nice and tight, but obviously to make sure you don't go beyond the beads, and then I'm going to pull the top tight. So then there's a bit of a technique where you pull that way, and then you make sure you kind of pull that way, make sure it's tight in all directions. And that is it. It's as simple as that. It's really easy with this elastic to do it. So when you've done that, just for your belt and braces, I have to say I don't bother with this because I'm very confident with my knots, but just when you're learning, use a little dab of nail varnish. Like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be clear because it's not going to show, it's only such a tiny dot, but it's just to glue that knot in place if you want to, especially if you're giving it as a present. It's embarrassing if you haven't quite got it right and then it breaks. Perish the thought. So you just pull it elastic a bit, and then you just dab a tiny bit of nail varnish right on that knot. That'll do. And then I'm going to leave that to dry. When it's dry, I'm going to cut the ends off. I'll do that in a second. It's very quick drying nail varnish. And then I'll just show you the other type of knot on this one here. So this is what I do. I find it much easier, but it is a bit of a fiddle the first few times you do it. So this one, you use the threads double rather than taking them one in each hand like I did before. You tie rather like an ordinary knot, but before you pull through, you twist the whole knot, the whole loop. So I've twisted that loop once, then you pull it through. Then what you have to do with this one is you need to hold on to that loop and tighten it down there, because if you pull this one too tight high up, you won't have a tightly strung bracelet. You can end up with a knot in the wrong place, which is why I say this is one that is a bit of a fiddle. So sometimes I actually put a something sharp in there like a needle and pull the knot down into the sort of loop of the knot, so that can work. So again, you do that little technique, tighten it one way, then open it up and tighten the other way. Make sure you feel like that's nice and tight in there. Then you're ready for your nail varnish if you need it. I don't bother, I have to say. You probably won't need this after you've been doing it for a while. Then I blob a little bit of nail varnish in there and leave that to dry. And then when that nail varnish is dry, it probably is almost already, we're just going to cut those threads off. I would cut them really close. I mean, some people leave a little bit of space, but you don't need to. Then it's not going to come apart unless you haven't done it right. If your bracelets still come apart when you're doing it like that, you're doing something wrong. Have a look at your technique and keep trying. So that's it, and that's a nice little bracelet that just slips on and off. Great little present for a friend, and also, you know, great. They're unisex. You know, depending on what beads you use, they're good for guys and good for girls. So good luck. Let me know how you get on.